Our good friend Jed Drenning, who is radio sideline analyst for West Virginia, also goes by the Signal Caller on Twitter and has, I think, as good and as thorough a preseason college football magazine that you've ever read. I mean that. I absolutely do. He's sent that to me before, and I mean that. I know that's a while off and it takes a lot of work. Hey, Jed, thanks for the time. Our chat room on 365 Sports, we've always had a lot of Mountaineers fans. But my goodness, they are on fire today with what they want, who they want, what else is out there. I know you can only say so much for right now, but where do you think they are in this search?
I think a decision or an announcement by Wren Baker, our athletic director, is imminent. He said from the outset, the quote that he used, it's an old John Wooden quote. He said, be quick, but don't hurry. And that's the approach that he wanted to take with this. Wren's a very thorough guy. He does a good job of vetting candidates. He's always prepared. He always has a list. You never know what's going to happen. Like early in his career, he's talked about the fact that he had a younger head coach, in one of his on one of his athletic teams when he was a young AD, just die out mowing his lawn one summer day. He said, "So look, you learn pretty quickly. You always got to be ready to have a list and draw from that list and start vetting and start interviewing." So this is in good hands. That's a long story short. We're very happy with the three hires that Wren Baker has made at West Virginia so far: a volleyball hire and a men's and women's basketball coach hire. And so his track record precedes him, but he did a good job at North Texas too. But he's going to do it in a thorough manner and an effective manner, and he's looking at all the right things. I don't doubt that for a second.
Do you have a feeling about any particular coach? And in particular for me, do you have a feeling about Rich Rodriguez returning?
I try not to start on the guesswork side of things, because the way these things tend to happen, so often you feel like you know more at the outset than you do a couple days in. That's probably how it should be. That means it's an effectively run operation. It's on lockdown. There's not a lot of information getting out. So I would prefer it to be that way. I just know that the names that I've heard floated, I can make a compelling case for any of those names that I have heard. So in terms of what it's been reduced to, that depends on who you ask. And again, there's really only one person at the end of the day that knows, and that's Wren. So everything else is guesswork. What I always caution fans of is when it comes to these circumstances, first of all, there's a lot of clicks to be had and a lot of downloads to be made when there's this kind of storyline. Everybody wants every update by every second. So, yeah, you can throw some chum out there and the sharks will bite. But just remember this rule. The people that speak the most probably know the least, and the people that speak the least might kind of sort of know the most. So that's the only warning that I would have to fans. It's fun to read and speculate. I get why they would do it. But at the end of the day, there's a very short list of people. Maybe that list is as a list of one that truly knows what's about to happen. So I don't know that I would want to guess. Again, there's names. You could toss a name at me and I could give you my thoughts and that kind of thing. But I haven't really leaned one way or the other in terms of what I think or what I believe, because I don't know.
Brian Hartline. Just tossing a name. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Brian Hartline. First thing that jumps to mind, incredible recruiter. So what he might lack from a game planning or play calling standpoint, he can make up for or compensate in other ways. I would imagine. I mean, I know that he's been a critical component to that staff for a number of years, and the Ohio State fans, he is absolutely beloved by Buckeye Nation. And I would imagine also that when Chip Kelly came in, his dynamic or his role in that staff kind of sort of changed in some way. But that's a guy that he's a young up-and-comer. And in this age where, acquiring talent still matters as much as it ever has, maybe just in more unconventional fashion, a guy like that, I can see him leaving his mark, or I can see why he would move the needle.
Jed, not asking you for an opinion on if he's going to get it or not, but did Rich Rodriguez leave in any way that could not allow him to come back to Morgantown?
It's an ugly breakup, and there's going to be residual feelings when there's an ugly breakup, even 17 years after the fact, which it is now. And you know, it's a strange dynamic. There's a lot of fans that are still upset with what happened, or they believe happened, or whatever the case might be. And there's a lot of fans who are passionate about, hey, if there's maybe a possibility or a glimpse of a chance into returning to some form of that glory that we had when he was here, I'm all about it. But the strange thing about it in this dynamic, the people that are on a unified front behind Rich as a candidate are the former players, with very few exceptions. The former players are almost unanimously amped up about even the speculation of Rich returning to Morgantown. So that's what's intriguing about it. And I will say this, with some of these candidates, you might have the fan base look at it and they don't study it like we do, right? Like you guys do, or I do. And they might not know a whole lot about it. Some of the really good candidates, they might not know a lot about them. So they might not have much of an opinion. But with Rich, everybody has an opinion. I will say that. Everybody has an opinion. So there's no meh. When you bring up Rich's name, you don't get the meh. That doesn't happen.
Jed Drenning, voice of West Virginia Athletics, sideline analyst, with us on 365 Sports.
Jed, part of the thing we've heard from our chat room with Rich is that, I mean, look, part of it was, 50% of them say, no way, let's not go back in the past. And 50% of them say, well, that was the glory days, let's recreate it. He's a West Virginia man and all that. Is that sentiment? Ironically, Rich Rodriguez was the first non-Michigan man that Michigan had hired, and they haven't gone away from that since him. They've always gone Michigan man. Is that sentiment really there among the alumni in a majority sense of that the only people who get us are us?
To an extent, yeah, there's some merit to that. And again, this happened when this unfolded in 2007 in early December. Everybody was kind of in a bad place. And by everybody, I also mean Rich. He was in an incredibly dark place. The fan base was in an incredibly dark place after what we just been through. And so I don't know that he was making clear decisions at the time. And then when he left, you found yourself in litigation against the university that he formerly worked at. So there's going to be some mudslinging from one side, from the other side. And then, of course, there's going to be attorneys saying, hey, you can't say anything in response to what they said. So it creates a mess. And it's a mess that just lives on in perpetuity. And a lot of that still exists. So, yeah, you're not terribly far off with that assessment, because there's no couching this as something other than what it was. And that was an ugly ending to one of the greatest runs in the history of West Virginia football.
Jed, with the fan base, there's obviously a lot of the back and forth that you've talked about, but just what kind of a sense of excitement do you get when it comes to the fact that they are turning the page and that, whoever it is, they're going to rally around and be excited about or whatever, but just the fresh sheets on the bed for West Virginia football at this point, how much was that needed in your opinion, and how much are people looking forward to seeing that?
I think there's an appetite for it. And again, I don't think on any level this is really the indictment on Neil Brown that some have tried to make it. The structure of his job fundamentally changed from when he was first hired in 2019 to when he was let go a couple weeks ago. It's not the same job that he took. We're now in what I call college football 2.0. He was hired at the tail end of college football 1.0. West Virginia as a program overachieved wildly in college football 1.0 and did incredible things. Everything we ever accomplished, nobody thought we could. And we did it by cultivating talent, creating a locker room culture, and keeping kids together and developing them for 4 to 5 years. Well, in this new era, you can't do things exactly the same way. So we're still trying to find our way, and for that matter, finance our way in this college football 2.0 model. And right in the middle of all that was Neil Brown's tenure. So there was seismic change that took place under Neil Brown's feet while he was here. It turned out that we were little more than an average football team. We weren't a bad football team, not at all. We were an average football team, won half our games, found ways to lose most of the games against the better teams that we had a shot at beating. That's what average football teams do, not good football teams. We weren't a good football team. So at the end of the day, it was time to move on. It was time to make a change, and there is an appetite for that in the fan base. And I think the thing about it is, the names that I have at different points from different, places seen it narrowed down to, I think I can make a compelling case for each of those names. And that's what excites me. And I think on some level, that's what will excite the fan base.
So National Signing Day was last week, a week ago today. And
Yes.
we know that the transfer portal is nuts, depending on what you want to go in there and look at or who's leaving your program. West Virginia signed a nice chunk of players despite the changes. What do they have, at least at this time, without kind of break it all down into X's and O's? But what about the what's in the luggage, so to speak?
Okay, well, what you got, you had such a unique situation on signing day. We thought we were going to get, when Neil was here, we thought we were going to get maybe 23 kids in that class. Well, we ended up with 21 kids without a head coach. And we ended up flipping 2 kids without a head coach. That's a testament to the entire staff pitching in, guys that don't know if they're going to have a job, but they were just doing right by the university. And to some extent, Neil Brown pitched in after he was let go. So everybody kind of had a hand in this. We put together what we feel is a very solid class. That's the future. Now, as for the present, basically moving forward into Tuesday's bowl game, you can expect almost everything intact outside of a couple portal entries, the big one being Josiah Trotter. But outside of that, we got a core group of senior kids who want to play one last time together and show what we put on the field in Lubbock was not who they are, from Garrett Green to Wyatt Milam on down the line. And they want to go out and put their best foot forward and show the world, hey, that's not what we are, what you last saw from us. So I think we got some weapons. Everything that you saw at our best this year will be available in the bowl game. Now, in terms of next year, different story. We got to rebuild in a lot of different areas, but that's kind of where we're at.
Jed, Frisco Bowl against Memphis. So just your thoughts on that opponent coming right around the corner. So obviously we're not going to talk to you again before that, and a lot will unfold after that, where I'm sure you'll be very busy with whoever the coach is and everything else. But your thoughts on the Tigers and Mountaineers clashing here in Texas?
Tremendous amount of respect for the Memphis Tigers and what Ryan Silverfield has done there. I've watched a lot of tape on them over the last week. An incredibly talented, fundamentally sound, very well-coached football team in all 3 phases. I like what they do from a structure standpoint with Tim Cramsey on the offensive side. Obviously, the most battle-tested of all senior quarterbacks. He is an absolute handful. There's a record. There's a reason he's a 4-year starter, a 13,000-yard guy. Their run game hasn't missed a beat. That was something that concerned them out of last year and this year with the transfer from South Carolina. He's really humming. Weapons on the perimeter, great tight end. They've managed to put together a really solid offensive line. And on the defensive side, new coordinator there as well with Jordan Hankins, his first year. And they cause problems. They confuse you. It's an odd stack configuration. They'll throw a lot of different looks at you. Guys, what you kind of hoped for with this 10-2 Memphis team is they're favored, and they're favored for a reason. But what you kind of hoped for was bowl season oftentimes is all about who wants to be there most. And this is a Memphis team who entered the season not just with aspirations of winning the AAC, but maybe even winning a bid into the 12-team CFP playoff. Well, that didn't happen. They lost a game or two they didn't expect to, but they finished strong with the win over Tulane. You're thinking, well, maybe because they had such high hopes, maybe the Frisco Bowl doesn't excite them and we won't get their best shot. But I'm telling you, the way they finished against a ranked Tulane team with probably Coach Silverfield's biggest win at Memphis in the last game of the year, knowing they weren't going to the conference title game, I was so impressed by that. And this is such a senior-heavy team, starting with the quarterback position and moving out from there. I absolutely feel the emotional intelligence of this team is high enough that we're going to take their best shot, and they're not going to be disappointed to be in Frisco and the Frisco Bowl at all.
Jed, what is the situation with West Virginia financially as a university and as they move forward with this new wave of college football with all the changes we see?
I think that if everything falls according to what we believe, you guys are in the same camp I am in terms of the guesswork with this, but there's no reason to think that the House decision won't be certified next month, right? And if in fact that happens, the changes that are going to be afoot by next summer could actually be somewhat of a silver lining for programs that are tiered like West Virginia. And what I mean by that is, for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been based almost strictly on NIL finances and how your trust is doing and how much revenue you can generate there. Well, it hasn't gone to the degree that we hoped it would. I mean, we've been toward the bottom quarter of the league for the last handful of years. But we believe that with these changes next year, if we are in fact fully funded up to that 22% of the athletic budget or the athletic income that you're allowed, that puts the football team in better standing to at least maybe fight our way into the middle of the pack from a spending standpoint and be competitive financially for the first time in a few years. So we think we could benefit from these changes, and maybe some of the disadvantages that we've tried to overcome the last couple of years won't be as stark or as extreme. And if that's the case, why not think that if you're given a puncher's chance, you can swing and knock off some of the big dogs in the Big 12 and be right there, even more in the hunt into November than we were this year.
Hey, man, great stuff. Giving us great insight on Heartline, what that might mean, or Rich Rod coming back, or whatever else is there. That's why we had you on. You're great. We appreciate it. Good luck with the search. Wrap it up and moving forward. Thank you for your time, Jed.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Jed Drenning, West Virginia Sideline reporter.